Snake plants are literally one of the easiest and most stylish houseplants you can grow, but there are a few tips that you'll want to know that will keep them looking their absolute best. I'm so excited because I just got two gorgeous snake plants from Wild & Son, who I'm partnered with on this video. This one is called a black coral snake plant, and this one is a Futura superba snake plant. I love them so much, and I'm going to be potting them up today. And as I'm doing my repotting, I'm going to share all of the tips that you need to know to keep your snake plants really healthy and thriving. A huge thank you to Wild & Son for sending me these absolute beauties. And what I love about Wild & Son is they offer healthy, high quality plants shipped right to your door, and they always arrive in excellent condition. They also have beautiful outdoor plants. I mean, they're awesome. So I'll have a link in my description below, and you can get 10% off your first order with code Ashley10. Snake plants have a lot of names. They're also known as mother-in-law's tongue, Sansevieria, Dracaena, trifasciata. They're native to West Africa, and they're known for their tall, sword-like leaves. And there are so many varieties of snake plants. If you're looking for an easy plant to have in your house or in your office, and you're not really sure what to get a snake plant and go to your plant shop, your local plant shops, and see if you can find some fun types of snake plants, because they're all really easy to take care of, but a lot of them have like different looks. So they're really fun to collect. And they're not just popular because they're basically indestructible, but because they really look so beautiful, and they really do well under neglect, which is great for a lot of us plant parents. One of the reasons snake plants are so easy is because they're super adaptable to different lighting conditions. They can handle lower light to bright light conditions. They'll tolerate lower light conditions, which makes them terrific office plants or for that random corner in your home, but they really thrive with bright light. If you give them more light, you'll often see much faster growth and even flower spikes. I'm going to pot these up and share the two best types of pots for snake plants. The first one is some sort of nursery pot, but make sure if you use like plastic or ceramic wouldn't be a nursery pot, but just make sure it has a ton of drainage, because these plants need well-draining soil mixtures. Even though they're basically indestructible, the only thing that would destruct them is to have waterlogged soil, because then they'll get root rot. So I love clear pots because I can keep an eye on the soil, keep an eye on the roots, on the moisture, and these are really great because there's tons of airflow. And then the other great pot for snake plants are terracotta pots. I found this really cute one at Walmart. I think it was like $6. I love the shape of it. It does have a drainage hole, which I'm going to punch out this little plug, and I love that it comes with a saucer. The nice thing with terracotta is it will actually wick away excess moisture. So if you're the type of person who maybe waters very regularly or a lot, or you're very concerned about your soil becoming waterlogged, then I would recommend going with terracotta, because it will help prevent the waterlogging, because it will wick away that excess moisture. Although, let's get into soil. So these plants need a very well-draining soil mixture. And what that means is that it will help prevent the soil from becoming waterlogged. So it doesn't matter how much water you give your plant, because it has a well-draining soil mixture, it won't have that waterlog issue. Okay, this looks really healthy. So when you're repotting, you want to make sure that the roots all look really healthy. These did great in shipping. That's awesome. Now these plants are going to enjoy a succulent or cactus mix is what I would recommend. So you can go ahead and purchase something that's already customized for cactus and succulents, or you can easily make your own soil. If you decide you want to make your own soil, here's a very simple recipe. 60% of your soil, it doesn't have to be exact, needs to be a substrate that will help promote drainage. So that's sand, perlite, pumice, you could even use orchid bark, really whatever you have on hand. And then the remaining 40%, you want to use some sort of potting mix, which will help retain some moisture, because these plants do enjoy a good drink. Now, using the right size pot is hugely important for snake plants. They do enjoy being somewhat snug in their pot, but enough room that they have some room to grow. So I'd say 1 to 2 inches bigger than the root ball. Not necessarily the size of the previous pot, because sometimes they get planted up in a pot that's way too big and has way too much soil for the size of the roots. And having way too much soil for the size of the root ball can contribute to it becoming waterlogged and therefore causing root rot. So making sure that our pot isn't too big is a huge step in preventing root rot. And what we're trying to do essentially is set our plant up for success so that we don't have to think about it for the next 2 years, because that's the beauty of a snake plant, is that you really don't have to think about it too much. Now I am loosening up the soil a little bit, but I'm not going too crazy because I don't want this plant to be way focused on root repair. I want it to focus on putting out new leaves. So this is an example of a soil that has like enough potting mix in there, but it also has sand, it has bark, it has pumice, it has perlite, it even has like some activated charcoal in there. So you can get creative and try out different recipes and see what works best for you, what you have on hand. But as long as it's a really chunky, well-draining soil mixture, your snake plant is gonna love it. Propagation, really quick, is very easy with snake plants, and you can have a ton of little baby snake plants all over your house or large snake plants. So there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest ways are by division and leaf propagation. So by division, this is a perfect example. Snake plants will put off pups or little offshoots off to the side, and you can see where this one is a pup. And it's very easy to just take some shears, a sanitized shears, and just kind of cut the little pup or offshoot off of the mother plant. Just make sure that the pup has its own root system before you do that, and that it's a decent size with roots so that it can have a better chance of survival. That's the one way. The other thing that you can do is to actually chop the leaf of the snake plant itself and then take that tip and put it into water, and literally the leaf will start to grow roots. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Just make sure that if you chop, that you make sure that, this is going to sound common sense, but I'm telling you, some people like myself probably need to hear it. You just want to make sure that the part that's been chopped actually goes in the water. And the reason I say that is, sure, when you cut the tip off, that's obvious, but you can actually cut this leaf multiple times, and then it can be confusing, like what was the top, what was the bottom, because it'll be chopped on both sides. So just make sure that the side that was originally pointing down is what goes into the water. But there you have it. I mean, it'll make roots, and then once it makes roots in the water, then you can just pot it up into some soil, and there you go, you have some snake plants. I almost forgot to take the little plug out. That's absolutely necessary, because the last thing we want is for this snake plant to be sitting in water. So you see here, that is literally the perfect size. It's about 1 to 2 inches larger than the root ball, or maybe about an inch, but that's okay. I'm not wanting the snake plant to go absolutely humongous. That's another thing that you can do to prevent your snake plant from growing huge, is you can keep it somewhat snug in its pot, or even trim the roots if you wanted to. Cute! She's a star in her star pot. So you just want to give it a little pat down, give it a little shimmy. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Some people will put like a coffee filter at the bottom to help prevent like soil from coming out. Yeah, that'll work. It's about 2 inches or 2.5 inches larger than the root ball. But the nice thing is I don't have to worry about there being too much soil around the roots, because my soil is so well draining that it won't be an issue for it to become waterlogged. Again, the clear pots are great. I can see that there's actually some gaps in here, so I'm just gonna shimmy it a bit. Perfect. You want to make sure to water your snake plants once the soil is completely dry. And if you're not sure if your snake plant needs a drink or not, you can always go by the leaves. Just like cacti and succulents, snake plants store a lot of water in the leaves. That's why they're so thick and so like sturdy. So if you're noticing that the leaves are looking thin, or if they're looking pruny, that plant is desperate for a drink. But just know that if the soil is fully dry, it's a good time to water your snake plant. Overwatering doesn't mean that you are giving your plant too much watering. It means that the soil is retaining way too much moisture for that plant. So that's why we make sure we have the correct pot, we have the right type of soil, we don't have too much soil compared to the root ball. Because then our chances of overwatering that plant, I have to come up with a different word for it. Maybe you guys can think of something that's not overwatering, because that really sounds like we're giving our plants way too much water, but it really just means like the soil is retaining too much moisture. So really, we're good to go now, and you'll see that this soil is very well draining. I have it in a little saucer here, and then when you do water your plant, you need to give that plant a really good drink. Soak it. Some people will literally just put it in the shower, put it in the tub, in the sink, and just like dunk it in water, or just give it a really good drink. Again, I can kind of keep an eye on consistent moisture throughout on this one, because I can see because it has the clear pot. And I'm going to actually let this plant sit in the water. You see how well it's draining already? That's what we're looking for. Well draining. And because it's so well draining, I can just keep watering it. So here we go. Lots of water for this guy. So I'm actually going to allow this plant to sit in the water for a few minutes because I've been watering from the top, but it needs to absorb some of that moisture from the bottom as well, so it gets consistent water throughout. Never leave your plant sitting in that water though for more than like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something. You don't forget about it until like a day or two, because then your plant's just going to be sitting in water. Root rot is going to be a risk at that point. So let's water this little guy. And I like that this one has a saucer, so I'm just going to leave the water kind of hanging out in the saucer. Again, not for a long time, maybe 30 minutes to an hour to allow the soil to absorb some of that water, but then dump out that water in the saucer. I'm obsessed with this star pot. It is so cute. Snake plants do enjoy some fertilizing. I mean, in their natural habitat, they're not getting a lot of fertilizing. So I'd say like a cactus and succulent fertilizer is great. And you can fertilize them during the growing months. I'd say somewhat sparingly, maybe once a month, give them a little bit of fertilizer. And then during the winter months or the dormancy period, don't fertilize at all. And you'll also want to withhold maybe some water during those winter months, unless you're in a really dry climate, or in Michigan I have the heat on all the time and it dries out my plant, so I end up having to do a lot more watering in the winter time, oddly enough. So, you know, use your common sense and your best judgment, but typically a lot of our plants go dormant in the winter and they just don't need as much water when they're dormant. And always start at 50% strength when you're trying out a fertilizer and you're starting in the spring, coming into the growing months. Give your plant a chance to acclimate. Make sure that they handle that fertilizer that you're using well, and then if everything looks good, go to full strength in the summer and then taper off in the beginning of fall. I've been sharing my favorite pest management combo in all of my plant care videos because it's just a side of having plants that can be a little bit stressful. I know for me it was very anxiety inducing to see pests on my plants, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I've tried everything. At one point I released 1,000 ladybugs in my house because I was just so distraught because all my plants were dying. At that time it was from thrips. So since I started using this, I don't stress anymore. Everything's fine. So the first thing is systemic granules. These go into the soil. You just sprinkle them in. It has measurements on the back. I'm not exact with it. I just put it in there. And then water like normal. You don't want to put these directly into your watering can. You want them to stay in the soil. And then once you water like normal, the roots will absorb the active ingredient that's in the systemic granules. It'll go into the leaves of the plant and it'll kill off any pests. So it's actually been really helpful for fungus gnats as well. Fungus gnats, mealybugs, aphids, thrips, scale, mealybugs. I might have said mealybugs twice there, I don't know. But it's helpful with everything except for spider mites. So insecticidal soap will combat just about every insect and every pest. And this you spray on the leaves of the plant. And you can try out different techniques. I always suggest doing a little test spray to make sure that it doesn't harm your plant or turn it brown. I've not had any issues with this, but it's always better to test. So you just spray the leaves of the plant and it'll kill insects like immediately. So I like to leave it on the leaves for a little bit. You can wash it off if you want to, maybe reapply. This is great. So these two together, and this one will combat spider mites on the leaves. So this is a great way to not just combat pests, but to prevent them. And I have to treat my plants year-round. I think it's every 6 weeks for this, and then I try to do at least once a month for this. But it's so worth it because I don't have to stress out about pests anymore, finally, after years with my plants. So 10 out of 10 recommend. These plants don't need humidity. They don't care about humidity. So I wouldn't worry about if you have a lot of humidity or not, because snake plants are fine with dry, arid climates. And as far as temperature, these plants do get cold. So you don't want to leave them outdoors if it's freezing cold. But you know, like I always say, if you're comfortable in your home, your plants are comfortable. If you're cold, your plants are probably going to be cold too. And I forgot to mention, these are really good air purifying plants, so that's just an extra bonus for having them in your house. So that's it, snake plant care in a nutshell. I hope this video was helpful. We have a super knowledgeable plant community, so please leave your tips and tricks in the comments for snake plants. And a big thanks again to Wild & Son for sending me these two beautiful plants. When I saw they had houseplants on their website, I was like, check. Send them my way, man. Send them my way. They also have beautiful outdoor plants. I mean, they're awesome. So I'll have a link in my description below, and you can get 10% off your first order with code Ashley10. All right, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see future planty videos in your newsfeed. We also have a great community on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and that I get to see you soon. Bye.